Chapter 3 Life Without Brian, Day 1. I walked alone out of the emergency department around 3:30 a.m. after kissing Brian goodbye for the last time. I rode home with my two brothers and can't even remember if we spoke a word during the drive. The car was cold and I was numb. At home, I found my wife and three children sitting together on the couch quietly in the dark. I sat down next to them thinking, what do we do now? The most heinous thing that could have possibly happened was now a reality. Our child was dead. Exhausted, we went upstairs to bed. I wanted us to all be together that night as a family, so Christy and Julie slept in our bed. I asked Kevin if he wanted to sleep on the floor with me in our bedroom, but he said no. I told him we could grab some sleeping bags from the basement and lie on the floor next to Mom and the girls, but he shook his head. I felt so bad for him, but didn't know how to comfort him any better. I will never know exactly why he didn't want to sleep with us, but I suspect he wanted to be close to his big brother Brian. You see, Kevin's bedroom is immediately next to Brian's, and the headboards of their beds are back to back, although separated by the bedroom wall. He wanted to be next to Brian's room that night, the night of his brother's death. So I went to his room with him and said goodnight for the first time without Brian in his life. Since Brian's death, I've found that every experience seems to be a new experience, which I define in relationship to the death of my child. Nautica, our black lab, who always sleeps upstairs by the kids' rooms, would not come upstairs. She stayed down by the garage door entrance that night, waiting for Brian to come home. We didn't sleep much that first night, but tried to close our eyes on and off. The continual thoughts about what had happened were all-encompassing. We all rose shortly thereafter, as Julie had an early morning basketball game. I couldn't believe that just hours after seeing Brian lying dead at the hospital, we were going to a basketball game. But I'm so glad we did. I know this meant a lot to Julie because she and her team were playing the game for her big brother Brian. But there was another reason she didn't want to miss this game. Her coach had told her the day before to get a good night's sleep because they really needed her for the game. She had told Brian what the coach said, and Brian had told her, "Doesn't that make you feel good that your coach wants you at the game?" Julie felt good about her big brother's words and wouldn't consider missing the game. Parents came up to us and gave their condolences. It was so surreal, as if they weren't talking about our son. How could they be talking about Brian, who had been alive just hours before? The game was very emotional for both teams, with all of the girls crying at some point. We led most of the game, but in the end, Julie's team lost by 2 points. After the game ended, we came home and sat in our empty, silent house. The aura of Brian's death was everywhere, and it was stifling. I couldn't sit still and began to pace around the house. I didn't know what to do. I was uneasy with the world, this horrible new world without Brian in it. I didn't know how to fix this problem or make it better. I asked Brian over and over why he had to die, as though he could somehow answer me and make it all better. What had he ever done to deserve to die a tragic death at such a young age? He was a good boy with a very giving heart. Nothing made sense to me. Later that morning, a friend called and asked if a group of parents could come over to say hi. We were hesitant, but at the same time needed the company of others. Around noon, the first of our friends started to arrive. 300 people must have passed through our house that day. Friends from out of town and even different states arrived to support us. All of Brian's friends came over. They wanted to be in the house, which offered a direct connection to Brian. They went to his room, where they sat and cried. All his personal belongings lay as he'd left them the day before. This was the most tangible spot left in the world, where his presence could be felt in the way...
Interruption, just a reminder that at dismissal today, please...
This was the most tangible spot left in the world, where his presence could be felt in the way he had left his room organized, the way he'd lined up his shoes under the bed, the spot next to his bathroom where he left his backpack the day before, his personal belongings arranged on the night table next to his bed. All served as reminders of who Brian was. Other kids went to the basement, where they'd spent so much time together having fun, listening to music, playing table tennis and pool, and talking about their lives and plans for the day and the future. They lingered for what seemed like hours, as if their presence might bring him back. I felt the same way much of that day. I can never describe in words the magnitude of pain, as well as the love that was present in our home that day. I assume it is the universal bond between a parent and a child that brought us all so close together. Each of the parents at our house knew that it could have easily been one of their children who had died. I was told that quite a few parents held their children a little closer that night. Everyone seemed to gain a better appreciation for life and how abruptly it can end. That evening, there was a vigil at the high school that the kids put together in Brian's memory. Their turnabout dance, which Brian was to attend that night, was canceled. Everyone brought their corsages to our house in remembrance of Brian. There must have been 300 people in attendance. Very nice things were said about Brian, all with a sense of disbelief that something of this nature could happen to such a nice young man. I remember one comment in particular made by one of his best friends. Brian had recently moved to Ottawa Hills High School after 3 years at St. John's Jesuit High School. He'd been at Ottawa Hills for only 5 months. It was an extremely tough decision for Brian to move to a new high school, particularly in his senior year. But the switch was something he really wanted to do, and he had done it well. He had transitioned into the school seamlessly and into the student body without any problems, and quickly made friends, which I could see by the number of people he invited over to our house on a regular basis. The kids who stopped over to pick him up to go out for the afternoon or evening, and the friends who stopped over to play spike ball in our backyard, even if Brian wasn't here. He was enjoying his newfound friendships and exciting new life at OHHS. During the vigil that night, his friends spoke about how quickly Brian had made friends. What touched me most deeply was what followed. He said, who move to a new school usually need to try to fit in with everyone else. But with Brian, that wasn't the case. We tried to fit in with him and be more like he was. At that moment, I think most people began to cry if they weren't already doing so. I can think of no greater honor or tribute from one friend to another. I wish my son could have been there to hear what his friend said and witness the emotions overcoming a community in Brian's honor. It was a testament to how Brian had affected so many people's lives in such a short period of time. Once the comments had ended, a procession of cars was underway to the crash site where Brian's life had been taken less than 24 hours earlier. His car had struck a large, majestic oak sitting alone off the side of the road next to the edge of the woods. The tree itself was barely scratched, yet Brian's car was demolished. This old, unforgiving tree was the only real witness to my son's death. Hundreds of people showed up along this gently curving, snow-covered road. What an odd feeling to want to see where someone has died. It may sound creepy, but again, I think it served as a tangible place where people could embrace or sense him or imagine his last living moments on this earth. It was the last concrete tie to Brian before he passed to the next world and became intangible to us. To many, that tree will always represent Brian's gravesite because that's where he died. My hope is that the tree will come to represent so much more. I hope it will serve as a reminder of life, to help people pause and reflect on how fragile and precious life is, to imagine for a moment waking up one morning to find out their son or daughter is dead and they will never have the chance to see him or her alive again. Would you have done anything differently? Do you feel comfortable that they knew you loved them? Did you tell them enough that you loved them? What a great kid they were and how proud you were of their accomplishments in life? Do you think they knew all of this? Or would you need a second chance? Second chances rarely come our way. And for Brian, there was no second chance. For me and my family, there is no second chance to tell Brian how much we loved him and how proud we were of him. I have to believe he knew this, but I can only hope. I also hope that a tragedy of this nature will serve as a catalyst for people to reevaluate what is truly important in their lives and prevent any regrets they may harbor if a loved one dies unexpectedly. Lastly, and probably most importantly, I hope Brian's death serves as a stark reminder of all the wonderful things in our lives that we take for granted every day. A reminder to appreciate what we have, especially our children, to tell them how proud we are of them and of their accomplishments, to encourage them to believe in themselves, and as Brian would say, just be you, to tell our kids how much we love them, because in a heartbeat, we may lose that chance forever when tomorrow never comes, and we're left only with a feeling of regret. I found a quote of Brian's that he posted on Twitter. Sometimes I wish there was no tomorrow. Think of how much fun we could have today. He posted that on December 28th, 2012, at 8:56 a.m., the morning of his 18th birthday. Brian had a great passion for life, an extremely positive attitude, and a love for generating infectious enthusiasm in others. I hope the legacy of his death will continue to instill these qualities in others as he did in life.